Welcome to another episode of the Weekly Roundup. Today we lead our story about Imperial College of London vaccine, which is to be tested in Uganda this December. Then, patients in touch with TrialSite News seeking help to access RLF 100, followed by a story on ivermectin and how it's breaking into American news as doctors come forward and share treatments for COVID-19. And finally, according to the University of Minnesota investigators, Appellamod is 5 times more potent against COVID-19 than remdesivir in cell culture. From TrialSite News, I'm Adrian, and the Weekly Roundup starts now. The Uganda Virus Research Institute aligned with Imperial College of London to launch the country's first COVID-19 vaccine clinical trial by December of this year. With the final internal processes and procedures underway, Professor Pontiano Kaleebu reports that the team is authoring the protocol directing the trial associated with the vaccine under development by Imperial College London of the United Kingdom. The first phase trial will center on safety and immunogenicity. So, Uganda. With over 42 million people, this country has a good-sized population. But thankfully, the cases of COVID-19 have not spread far or wide. There are various hypotheses for this, which for this episode tonight we won't delve into. Now, according to public records, the entire nation has just over 1,300 cases and 9 deaths. However, the fear is that the virus could spread, and the nation's health authorities do not want to take any chances. Professor Kaleebu suggests Ugandans are upbeat about the vaccine coming out of the UK. It's a well-designed, well-planned, and well-governed clinical trial, which will be in the best interests of Uganda, according to the professor. Now, back in May of 2019, TrialSite News introduced the emerging clinical research centers in Uganda. We emphasized it as a place to not only visit, but also watch out for as it and neighbors in Central and Eastern Africa emerge into the world trading ecosystem. Now, TrialSite's article on Uganda generated an intense response. Many visitors were not happy that this vaccine was going to be tested in the country. For historical legacy challenges, there is a fear that Western companies or governments might want to take advantage of the people for research. TrialSite's feedback on this is that it would appear that the intentions of the university are noble and good from what we can see. Among health authorities in Uganda, although there is not a large crisis now with COVID there is a fear that it still may come. Moreover, there is a real desire to ensure that vaccines are developed and tested so all people can have a safe and efficacious experience. But that being said, TrialSite News cannot discount or deny the fear and anger that this article generated. There are historical wrongs that have happened, and societies should be vigilant to make sure that basic rules such as informed consent are practiced in uniform around the world. TrialSite is grateful for the participation of Uganda, and we will continue to monitor these studies as we do around the world. Now, on the topic of this country, TrialSite News did some research into the clinical trials activities there. Based on the survey of clinicaltrials.gov and a couple other sources, we found that there were a total of 415 clinical trials registered in the country with 148 active trials across multiple therapeutic areas. Undoubtedly, COVID-19 has impacted the ecosystem. Last year, only 24 clinical trials were industry-sponsored compared to 60 trials that originate from non-government agencies, universities, and foundations. A total of 45 studies had some U.S. government involvement pre-COVID-19. Universities and institutes contribute tremendously to Uganda's research growth. An example of this are major research centers such as the Uganda Cancer Institute. This institute is a public, specialized tertiary care medical facility owned by the Uganda Ministry of Health. The main facility is located in the Kawempe division of Kampala. It is a cancer treatment, research, and teaching center affiliated with Mekere University School of Medicine and with the Mulago National Referral Hospital, the teaching hospital for the medical school. UCI maintains an inpatient facility with a capacity of 80 beds. It sees on average 200 patients per day. In 2011, UCI started development for the UCI Hutchinson Center Cancer Alliance, a collaboration between Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center in Seattle, Washington. The facility opened up for patients in 2015. And back in 2001, Pfizer contributed $11 million during its inception. The IDI is an advanced, forward-thinking academic enterprise with several programs including prevention, care, and treatment, research, outreach, training, laboratory services, and global health security. For the rest of the overview of Uganda, we've provided additional links that can be accessed by clicking on the link in the description below. Meanwhile, TrialSite News received several messages from patients on a daily basis. We've seen family members facing crisis situations with COVID-19. There is growing data points that the investigational drug called RLF-100, a product under development by NeuroRx and Relief Therapeutics of Switzerland, can help save lives of COVID-19 patients in severe to critical condition. Recently, the company filed an IND, and there is ongoing emergency access protocol available in select research sites. Now, the challenge for TrialSite News has been that a few patients' spouses have reached out to us in a desperate situation as they are afraid that they will lose their loved ones. They found us via our articles and content and wanted our support any way that we could. And so, TrialSite members were in touch and, based on the best of our ability, advised them about contacting the sponsor and the hospital to see if there was a way to get emergency access to the drug. Additionally, TrialSite News sent an email communication to the CEO of NeuroRx Incorporated, the partner to the actual intellectual property owner, Swiss-based Relief Therapeutics, or Relief. And I'm proud to say that TrialSite did what was possible, given its limitations, as a non-medical information intermediary to help a couple Texas-based families. The situation isn't good, but one piece of promising news is that the U.S. Food and Drug Administration recently announced that NeuroRx was granted a recently requested investigational new drug application to test RLF-100 for inhaled use in patients with moderate to severe COVID-19 in order to prevent progression to respiratory failure. And this opens up new potential use cases for this investigational product that shows considerable promise against COVID-19. So, for one patient, what triggered the wife to contact us here at TrialSite News? Well, through one of our articles on TrialSiteNews.com, she read that the drug was working on patients with severe COVID-19 conditions at Houston Methodist Hospital. TrialSite reported that doctors at this provider were identifying successful treatment. For example, they reported that a 54-year-old had developed COVID-19 while being treated for rejection of double lung transplant, and who came off a ventilator within 4 days. Other results were observed in over 15 patients under emergency use IND and an FDA expanded access protocol, which is open to patients too ill to be admitted to the ongoing Phase 2 and 3 trial as mentioned previously. Now, with an improved IND, NeuroRx can hopefully save more lives, but the drug must be put to a stronger test. In this Phase 2 clinical trial, patients with severe COVID-19 who have yet to develop respiratory failure are treated with nebulized RLF-100. And, as reported by the company in a recent press release, if the results of this first step are promising, the trial will expand to patients at home with mild and moderate COVID-19 in order to prevent the needs for hospital admission. Now, this opens up a very big market for NeuroRx and its Swiss partner. The study team will assess the results based on the actual progression to severity of COVID-19. Now, Professor Jonathan Javitt, CEO of NeuroRx, the U.S. partner of Relief, suggested that it is known that the VIP suppresses replication of the SARS-CoV-2 virus in human lung cells based on the outstanding work of Oswaldo Cruz Institute. Now, the CEO is optimistic after success seen in Houston that this powerful investigational product will, as he said, stop the advancement of the virus in patients with earlier stages of COVID-19. So, Relief's chairman recently stated that the Swiss biotech could potentially generate hundreds of millions of dollars if the drug is given the green light from regulators. And according to TrialSite News' own analysis, this appears to be correct. A top investment bank analyst has already forecast Gilead could earn between $1 to $3 billion with a commercial payer price of just over $3,000 over the next years for remdesivir. Given the total number of COVID-19 cases in the developed world, and if a vaccine takes more time to mature and the virus persists, and the product continues to work and can't be used for outpatient, and assuming payer coverage, the turnover could, certainly under these assumptions, go into the hundreds of millions of dollars. And perhaps, if the drug cuts into remdesivir territory and used as standard for even pre-moderate cases, they could achieve even more financially. And unlike remdesivir, to date, which has a moderate impact in COVID-19 and no proven impact on cutting the death rate, RLF-100, if it keeps producing results in the ongoing trials, and if it can be proven to materially save lives, culminating with FDA and other agency approvals, then this investigational product will drive a return that all concerned can feel good about. And so TrialSite News will continue to monitor COVID-19 investigational drugs daily. And if you'd like to know more and get regular updates yourself, you can sign up for our newsletter on TrialSiteNews.com. Now for our next story of the weekly roundup, Dr. Lauren Mickey, an ears, eyes, and throat specialist at Glenwood Medical Mall in West Monroe, Louisiana, was recently interviewed by local television station Fox 14, reporting that the cheap and widely available medication Ivermectin is being used at this provider's practice successfully treating COVID-19. As reported by the news station. Originally developed for animals and then decades ago developed for humans as an anti-parasite wonder drug, TrialSite has chronicled this medication's usage against COVID-19 around the world, as well as in the United States, off-label. Now in West Monroe, Louisiana, this specialist has come forward to share that although hydroxychloroquine had been considered a potential drug, and it may have seen some impact in COVID-19, the Louisiana-based doctor suggests that ivermectin actually attacks COVID-19. Now, TrialSite must stop here and remind all viewers, ivermectin is not yet approved for COVID-19, and there is technically no clinical evidence yet that the drug is effective against the virus. TrialSite recently commissioned a documentary in Peru where the drug has been accepted by the national authorities, and just about every doctor interviewed expressed the importance for randomized controlled trials. TrialSite first reported on the ivermectin breakthrough based on lab research driven by Monash University and Peter Doherty Institute in Australia. The team found that ivermectin in certain amounts kills SARS-CoV-2, the virus behind COVID-19, in a cell culture environment. Now that report led to community-level physician experimentation around the world, in some cases claimed to accumulate so-called real-world evidence as to the safety and efficacy of the drug. Over 36 clinical trials have been launched as well, including a couple in the United States. In fact, TrialSite News just recently reported of a new company seeking to commercialize ivermectin in California. Now, a couple studies have produced positive results, although the studies don't have a lot of patients and the studies were based on low to middle income countries, and the medical communities aren't necessarily integrated with wealthier country medical communities. Peru is one nation that has actually allowed ivermectin on the National Clinical Therapy List in association with COVID-19. The use of ivermectin has been limited thus far in the United States, although the curiosity has grown since the case series study out of Broward Health led by Dr. Jean-Jacques Reiter, a physician who treated hundreds of patients successfully with an antiparasitic drug. Dr. Reiter has been a guest of the TrialSite News podcast series as well. Now, Card's Maya Hodgkins recently led the interview where Dr. Mickey further commented on this, that other treatments which are helpful are not medications that actually kill the virus. This drug has been counted as being effective and eliminating the virus by killing it. Now, the doctor noted that we've seen a couple of patients that had very bad appearance when we got them, and that turned around fairly quickly. Now, you can say that they would have done that anyway, but I really think that this medicine is helpful. So, does ivermectin kill the virus? Well, Card suggests that ivermectin does indeed remove the virus from the body. However, Dr. Mickey made it clear ivermectin is not to be used for severe COVID-19 cases where the drug has not been shown to be effective, if people get so sick that they are in the hospital on oxygen or on a ventilator. By then, it is not going to be effective. Now, meanwhile, we here at TrialSite News get more emails and communications from patients who are losing loved ones daily. It is a horrific situation and something desperately needs to be done to reduce the probability of disease progression. So what if ivermectin had the properties that could help treat people at earlier stages of the infection? TrialSite News has chronicled reports around the world that the drug can work for this type of scenario. Again, it is not proven yet by randomized controlled trials, despite the fact that at least a few such clinical trials have been completed. Now, the FDA has cautioned the public not to take ivermectin as there is no clinical evidence of its efficacy for COVID-19. The FDA is on record that randomized controlled trials could produce data that could be analyzed for consideration. However, the drug is FDA approved for various treatments such as head lice, hence why some doctors across the United States are using off-label. But to date, the FDA is adamant that the drug should not be used for COVID-19 without the necessary evidence, and that can only be generated by properly designed, randomized controlled trials. Researchers with the University of Minnesota Medical School see significant promise for the anti-cancer drug Appellamod. The university recently reported that early results show that Appellamod is 5 times more effective in treating cell cultures with COVID-19 as compared to remdesivir. Now, will this benefit translate to clinical trials? Now, in the power of science, Sanford Burhan Presbyterian Medical Discovery Institute identified Appellamod as one of 21 drugs that could strongly act against COVID-19. Now back to the University of Minnesota. The professor and vice chair of research in the Department of Rehabilitation Medicine articulated the powerful findings. Now, they found that the drug had shown potential treatment in treating viral infections such as the Ebola virus. So the group applied for and received a COVID, or Collaborative Outcomes Visionary Innovation and Discovery, grant to kickstart their research, ultimately designing a 99% variety of Appellamod. Now, the team, based on Vadim Gurvich's network, found a team in Chicago where there is the ability to test various investigational therapies in animals. The Minnesota team moved quickly to capitalize on the facility. While collaborating on preclinical cell culture study, they found that the amount necessary for their Appellamod-like therapy to block SARS-CoV-2 is 1/5 to 1/10 of what is needed when using remdesivir. Now, after analyzing their findings, Dr. Battaglino suggests that this therapy approach may be superior to that of remdesivir to treat patients with severe cases of COVID-19 and possibly prevent progression from mild to severe symptoms. The team now needs to identify if this drug can make the transition from cells in a dish to live subjects that have COVID-19. They are applying for grants with the National Institutes of Health and the U.S. Department of Defense, while also keeping close to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. They are now on a mission to provide the safety and efficacy of their Appellamod-like drug. Now, Appellamod is a drug that was finally identified as an inhibitor of the production of the interleukins IL-12 and IL-23, and developed for the oral treatment of autoimmune conditions such as Crohn's disease and rheumatoid arthritis. Through clinical trial results disappointing, and development of these applications were halted. Later on, however, scientists found that Appellamod has an additional mode of action as an inhibitor of the lipid kinase enzyme PEAK5. More recently, Appellamod was repurposed as a potential antiviral and anti-cancer drug, with possible applications in the treatment of non-Hodgkin lymphoma and viral diseases such as Ebola, Lassa fever, and COVID-19. TrialSite News recently reported that Appellamod was identified as one of 21 drugs that identified as a potential weapon against COVID-19 based on the research of a group out of Sanford Burnham Presbyterian Medical Discovery Institute, led by Sumit Chandra. Now, the team hopes to have clinical trials going by the fall of this year. And for more updates on this and other stories, you can sign up for the TrialSite Daily newsletter for updates, or check out our website at trialsitenews.com. And so our program comes to a close once again. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Weekly Roundup. As always, we appreciate you and can't wait to see you again next time.